So after you studied with Spanky, you said that you went to go play in a Black Pentecostal church. Now, what's really funny about this will be episode 16 of the Rhinestone podcast, and it is unbelievable how many musicians have learned their chops from church, specifically Black church.
Oh, yeah, I was going to
And
say the African American musicians.
there's been a couple that have gotten it on no shame on Hillsong, but um, but as far as that goes, um, what were some of the big things you learned playing in a Black Pentecostal church as far as a musician?
It's a great question because it kind of just answers better what you just asked me about ear training, which is it teaches you ear training and instinct because nobody sat and was like, okay, Ella, well, so it's E minor 9, and then it's going to an E flat major 9 sharp 11, and then there was no rehearsals, there was no discussion. It just was I say get, I didn't invent it, but the phrase get in where you fit in. And in a lot of more contemporary gospel music, apparently it's changed these days, but 80s, 90s, early 2000s, music was very harmonically colorful and rich, almost like Take Six harmony, a lot of reharmonization, diminished passing chords. It was just the harmonic rhythm of the music was very dense. So I had to find a way to get inside of the music and navigate through it without anyone telling me what to do. And by habituation and showing up every Sunday, my ear improved. By getting over some fear, my ear improved. By saying to myself, it's not about trying to say that it's, E minor 9/11 to A13 to this. What's a part that you can come up with that goes inside and through the music? Keyboard players already playing all the changes. You're not going to out reharm them and whatever. So it was just a different approach, to music. And I feel like that really, really got my ear together, and it, I can talk about some other experiences maybe later in the interview. Like there was a experience, with Erykah Badu, but, playing in church sort of prepared me for that sort of no rehearsal, get in where you fit in, cameras on, 3, 2, 1, go,
So what was your first church gig like, and what was your last church gig like in that time period? Like, how much of a transformation of a musician did you have?
Oh, that's a really deep question. Wow. Well, my first church gig was showing up at a all-Black Pentecostal church in Dorchester, suburb of Boston, and asking if I could sit in. They didn't have a guitar player. I don't even remember how I chose that church. I'm not sure. And I just remember getting my ass handed to me. The drummer was a guy named Charles Haynes, who's a good friend of mine. He plays for everyone. Lady Gaga, Michelle Indigiocello. He's just one of my favorite drummers. Versatile, amazing producer. And then there was a guy named Keith Harris on keys. Keith is actually a drummer. He was the drummer for the Black Eyed Peas. But of course, he's a killing organist. So he was doing the gig on organ. I didn't even know he was a drummer at first. So those two guys, it was a really small band. So, I can't remember who played bass. And sorry, my cat's going to knock some stuff over. And I just remember being so overwhelmed and feeling like I'm just not good enough. And it had nothing to do with the musicians. They weren't, shaming me or anything. If anything in Black church, at least for me as like a white girl back then, it was more like, go ahead, like go get some, like go get yours. It's like they were rooting for me, But I didn't, imposter syndrome. And I'm like, here I am, like the only white chick in this black church. And I just sort of felt like an imposter musically, not as a person. Just like, I want to play and reach someone like these musicians are. That was my first gig. The last gig I did, I had moved to Los Angeles, and I was playing at this like mega church. I was playing at the Forum, playing for Faithful Central, and there was another church. And so some of the musicians had booked just a small random gig somewhere. And also badass music, like the keyboard players, Cassandra, who played for Prince, and just killing musicians. And I just got so deeply moved. If you ask them the story, they'll tell you like it was the Holy Ghost. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God at all. I just believe in being a good and kind person and loving people. And if you need to get that through God, that's amazing. I don't need it through God. I get it myself. So they'll tell you I was possessed by the Holy Ghost. I just think that, I was deeply moved by music, but everyone stopped playing. And it was like this out of body experience. And I ended up just, playing, and people were crying in the audience and whatever. It was like solo guitar, and I had sort of become disillusioned from the church. There was some stuff that maybe is not worth getting into, but just some things with money, nothing to do with me, just people being greedy with money and sort of seeing just a more human side of church. I was sort of already on my way out by then. And that gig was just overwhelming. And I remember calling Spanky and telling him about it, and was like, whoa, this was crazy. I mean, I just started, it wasn't a part of the show, but they stopped playing and all this. And so he was like, well, it was the Holy Ghost. And so now you have a responsibility to do this and do that and minister to people. And I just was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And I should say, Spanky was an incredibly holy person, religious person, and he anointed my hands, so there's a part of me, it's a little bit torn with religion.
What does that mean, anointed your hands? What does that mean? Like he just, I'm imagining like no way, really?
It was a storefront church in Alabama, and they anointed my hands with Crisco oil or Wesson, one of the two. Yeah.
That is so deeply Southern. Is this Huntsville, Alabama?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that you're definitely not getting that up in Massachusetts. That's definitely a Southern experience right there.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. So that was my last experience. There was a lot, in between, and it's up to you. It's your podcast. I mean, I'm happy to tell you reasons why I don't do it anymore. But I don't really play gospel music anymore.
It's up to you. If you want to go into it, let's go into it.
Okay. Well, for those that don't know, I'm a transgender woman. And I just received a lot of, sort of backlash for my identity, for who I am, from a lot of religious folks, mostly white, evangelical, Republican Christians, not necessarily Black folks. But, it sort of left a sour taste in my mouth how a lot of people were made to feel othered and less than in the church for being within the LGBTQ plus, spectrum. That never sat right with me, So there were just rubs that I just didn't like. I loved church for the community and the music and ministering to people and people having a place to go to feel like they're a part of something and get fed spiritually or whatever. I think that's a really beautiful thing. Um, However you find that, whether that's church or just community that you have. But I just didn't like the just the hypocrite, the people being hypocrites and the hypocrisy, and just didn't sit right with me, you know. Um, so I just chose not to do that stuff anymore because of that, you know. Um, yeah.